You've reached Monster 911, and I'm Lance Hightower. I've been taking cryptid emergency calls for over 5 years. If you have a cryptid emergency, please call our toll-free number, 866-306-8085. I can help you. What's your emergency?
And what was even more affirming was the next morning told us that her donkeys got out again, either late in the night or early in the morning when it was still dark. But this time they were actually locked in a smaller pen because they had gotten out a couple days before. So she had locked them in a smaller area, and they had still gotten out after my dad saw the creature. So we were wow. We were those donkeys sensed something.
Yeah, and donkeys usually can kill coyotes, and they're not afraid of coyotes. So that's the crazy thing, is that these donkeys never really did that type of behavior before we got there.
Because the landowner, she was they don't ever behave like this, and it's kind of strange and maybe coincidental that it's happening, all while this other stuff is happening.
Yeah, it could be related, for sure.
And I was thinking, I don't want to be I don't want to, I want to hurry up and get out of here.
Yeah.
I don't want to stay another night.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the day they got out was Thursday, and so I remember waking up that morning and my eyes were still blurry, and I looked out the window in the den area, and I looked out the window, and there was this the stain, the rollers from the stain from a few days earlier, brown stain, and my eyes were blurred, and so I saw eggs, I thought they were brown eggs, and I was hey, to my dad, I was hey, the Dogman left you some eggs, kind of like a joke, kind of, I guess.
Okay.
But that popped in my head to say that. And then so later, after work that day, we go back down to the four-wheeler road. Just because, after seeing that creature, we're and after, analyzing the photos from that area, we go back and we're let's go up and take more photos, see if there's anything else out there. We didn't really see anything with our eyes out there, so we kind of headed back. But when we were heading back, what we, experienced was kind of strange. We saw this deer, and it was coming out of the woods up to the road, but we were still a good distance from it. And it looked really intimidating looking. It looked kind of on the defense, would you say?
Yeah, it kind of charged towards us and then stopped and then looked at us, but it was still about 40 yards away.
Yeah, it was still a distance from us, and I just thought it was really strange behavior for that deer, because
we had seen at least 50 deer over the course of being there so far, and they were real passive and eating grass, look at us, kind of walk away if they saw us, or run away. This one came to the road to kind of check us out.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like it that would be in September still.
Yeah, it was still September.
So it's pre-rut. So deer get a little stupid and they start getting more aggressive during rutting times, but that would be way too early. Typically, they don't start until either mid-October, late October kind of thing. They go through at least around 2 ruts, but that would be too early for that to happen. So that's a little bizarre behavior.
Yeah, it was bizarre. So I started filming with my phone, and I told my dad to drive closer to it so I can get a better view. I like taking pictures of animals and stuff. And right at that moment that I was hey, start driving faster so we can get closer, this white hawk, it flies right over
right over our path.
Yeah.
Just in front of the vehicle, about 35 feet or so above us.
Yeah, it was a predominantly white hawk, but it had light brown feathers, but the underbelly was still white, and so was the top part, but the wings had the little brown feathers too. And it was a regular size hawk compared to like that big white hawk I saw. This one was like more of your average size hawk, but it was predominantly white, and it flew over right when I was like, let's go get closer to that deer. And after like the hawk flew away, the deer was gone. And so like,
So I mean, it was just a kind of weird, but
yeah, it
not
was
really
just,
saying much about
yeah, it was just an experience that we're just saying, but
Sure.
we thought it was weird, you know.
Yeah, well, and that's why you document everything. You don't
Yeah,
know if there's anything associated or not, and if it happens to be just a happenstance moment, then it is, you know.
yeah,
But you if you don't document everything, you don't know if there's a common thread of association or not.
yeah. And so, you know, we just uh, experienced it, and you know, didn't really um, give it more meaning than what had happened. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So like we went back to the house, and you know, I ate some food and stuff, and I went over to the house, and she was gonna teach me how to like can vegetables.
Mm.
And so I was over there when this next like thing happened. Um so my dad drops me off. I'm over there, and then when my dad goes back to the house that we're staying at, you want to say that?
Yeah, and it's probably like what, half hour before dusk, or maybe an hour before dusk. There's still enough light outside where it's, you know, you can see pretty well. And I get back, and right on the front porch that we just came out of, you know, what, an hour ago before, yeah, there was a little gray bird, dead, just placed on the right in the middle of the bottom step on the deck. And I looked at it, and I looked around for maybe an impact on the window or the sliding glass door. Didn't see any blood on there, or no saliva or feathers anywhere around it. So I was like, you know, I've seen birds slam into a window before, and feathers, a little, you know, puff of feathers fell off of it. And
Mm-hmm.
this one didn't have that. And it just had one little drop of blood under the nostril, and the neck looked broken, but it was placed there because there was no indication that it hit any of the windows or anything.
Hmm.
And so I went and buried it back where I saw that the cryptid canine hyena creature, Dogman, and I buried it by the fence, and not too far from it, the gate.
Right.
It was kind of a clay soil, and it broke apart, and I put the little pile off to the left, and then I packed it back down, you know, put the bird in the hole, and then you want to go ahead. So that's what happened for that day.
Okay.
Yeah, and also that night, we didn't hear really any sounds either, like no more rumbling or tapping or anything like that. And this was like also the day after the sighting and after the gunshots, so we didn't hear anything that night. And you know, that's when we started to believe that maybe that creature had something to do with the sounds.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking about, like infrasound stuff, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, and then so the next day, which is Friday, is our last night there, like our last full day and night there. Like I remember I was like kind of, you know, looking forward to leave. But even though I did enjoy West Virginia, I was kind of ready to go back. Um so me and my dad, we walk outside to go see like the bird, the burial. And then my dad notices that it's like all you know, dug up.
Yeah, the hole was dug up in a very strange manner. The clay chunks were lifted out and placed around in like a semicircular fashion around the hole, and there was no indication like a fox or a coyote just scratched it up and made a pile. So I was like, that's bizarre. And there's no bird. And then I look over to the like right of the hole, and there was like a little circular but kind of disarrayed feather pile with no blood, just the feathers,
Okay.
and maybe a small bone or two. I didn't really look at it, but I was like, that's weird. I don't see claw marks in the hole. I don't see a place where it was piled up, and I said, that's really awesome. It's like each chunk, it was maybe like a half a dozen golf ball sized chunks, and then there was maybe another half a dozen slightly smaller than that. And I packed it down. So
Hmm.
each would have broken out into like a chunk. You would have to grab it and then lift it out.
Gotcha.
So that I thought that was strange. And I
Yeah.
did notice there was some depression uh, in the grass that went down to the stream, and the stream winds back up to the pond about 1,200 feet away.
Hmm.
And so something had walked on the grass over toward the stream, which is just about 10 feet away from that where the bird was buried. And
Okay.
it was like depressions were probably uh, just circular looking, no tracks so you could identify any type of animal.
Right. Right. Okay.
And that was pretty much it for.
Yeah, for during the day part, but at night the sounds came back, and they were like the loudest they had ever been. Because I was in my room and I was, finishing packing up my stuff, and my dad was in his room, and he heard this too, of course. But I'm just gonna explain it from my perspective, and then he'll explain it. But from my room, I heard this big like boom sound all the way across the mobile home, and like in that instant, I thought like I was like, the only way I can explain how loud the sound was like someone, heavy. So like my dad jumping on the bed and like jumping off and just like making like a loud boom sound on like a kind of like a hollowish
Mm-hmm.
floor. And so I was like, dang, that is so loud. I haven't heard anything that loud the entire time. So I run over to my dad's room and he's like, oh my God, did you hear that? That was loud, right?
Yeah, it was like a 200-pound branch
Boom.
fell on the roof or something,
Wow.
Yeah, it was
Wow.
really, and very loud. And also everything else was ramped up, like all the thuds and taps and like knocks. It was everything was like going. It was like ramped up, and also the hum was like louder. It was like hum, like loud. And then this is also when I noticed like this growl sound. Like it was like a low growl, like that kind of,
Mm-hmm.
that. And so like all this noise is happening, and I get kind of frustrated with it. So I bang back on the wall a couple times, and it's still making noise, but I banged back. And then like I'm like close to the wall, and I hear like this like raspy, like struggling sounding, like breathing. It sounded kind of like kind of like that, and it was just like breathing and like huffing, and that hum was going on, and all the bangs, and it was just so much noise, and I was like, oh my God, I don't know what to do with this. So I'm like, I'm gonna attempt.
And my heart was racing too, because that one impact was the main thing that was different from all the other nights. It was just a really super powerful impact. That to me let me know that what that creature was very strong.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say so.
I was thinking about just kind of like staying in the middle of the house and not being in a room window, you know.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So like after that noise and commotion going on, I was like, oh, I'm gonna attempt to communicate with this creature telepathically, because my dad had told me that watching Dogman videos that they're
They can telepathically put
communicate.
images in your head.
Yeah, so I was like, I'm gonna attempt to do this, and I communicated with it. I told it my name, and then I received a vision, like a visual image through my mind's eye, and I drew a drawing of what I saw, and I believe my dad sent it to you. And so what I saw, like after I said what my name was, I saw this like dog-headed wolf creature, and it was just the head and the face part. It had the tall ears, the tall pointed ears. It was like a dark grayish, like the charcoal gray. It had like a mane, like kind of like a mane, like yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the eyes were like amberish yellow gold color, and like the sockets are like almond shaped, and it had the wrinkles on the nose and the like the snout part, the and its teeth were showing, so its kind of lips were pulled back, and you could see the wrinkles, and the teeth were sharp, and
It was almost like a kind of a weird smile, grin.
yeah,
Hmm.
it was like a weird grin, like it was just showing its teeth, but I didn't know what to make of that. Like, what was this? I didn't feel any like fear from it, but I mean, I was still like, what do I do with this image? Like, I'm seeing this. This is, if that's what the creature is, and this is what I'm seeing, that's what's out there. I mean, I'm scared, but like the image didn't project fear into me, is what I'm trying to say.
Hmm.
Um,
Okay.
so I try to communicate with it some more, like try to ask if it's like gonna hurt us or anything, but I don't receive any, nothing else after that. So then after like a little while, the sounds kind of die down, and then we have to go to sleep since we're leaving the next day, but we didn't sleep good that night either.
Yeah, it was rough because that one bang that did it for me. That
Yeah,
was too much.
I imagine so. And so as soon as you saw this, I mean, the encounter was just a few seconds, and then you ran back in the house, is what you said, correct?
Yeah, it was like maybe 3 seconds at the longest.
And you were at a distance of
It was like parallel. It's like almost like maybe when it looks at you, maybe there's like if it was doing the possibly infrasound, I don't know, and it makes you pause or freeze so it can ambush you or jump on you. I don't know. But that was really frightening, like
I'm
down
sure
to
it
the core.
was. Yeah. What was the distance again from this?
Well, I was in the middle of the back of the house, so I was about 30 feet from the back of the house, and it was probably another 30 to 35 feet behind that.
Okay.
And the size was, I'm just kind of, the gate was about 5 feet long and about a little over 4 feet tall, 4 foot 4 inches, and the hump on the back was maybe 6 inches lower than the gate top,
Okay.
and the body was probably without the tail a little bit longer than the gate, or maybe a few inches, or I don't know. I mean, it just looked really big, and it looked like a bear-sized animal.
Hmm.
I would
Yeah.
say like 300 pounds, 350 pounds. But I mean, it could be more, could be, less. I'm not sure, but it was big.
Yeah. It's enough to shake you up
Yeah.
and to get back to the house quickly.
Yes.
And, unfortunately, now all you saw was this one, correct?
That's all I saw. Like, yeah, the rest of the uh, things that we saw were in photos.
Okay. 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 Yeah. Go ahead.
So, after all that noise, and we didn't sleep good that night, and we were supposed to leave the next day, and so when we wake up kind of late, and we kind of get a delayed start on our trip back, but we end up going to a
And then so we're on the road heading back.
yeah, so like on the so
Kentucky.
what made it weird was on the way back, we're in Kentucky, just got into Kentucky with driving. We're on the right side of the road, and this like really nice, fancy, low riding like sports
like a
looking
Ferrari
car.
or a Corvette, like dark blue, black color.
Mm-hmm. Like it like drives really fast up ahead on the left side of the road, and then it kind of like comes back.
Yeah, it just drifts back, kind of like a professional stunt driver.
Yeah, because it didn't go on the brakes or anything. It kind of just like came back to like where it was like slightly ahead of us, and the passenger rolls the window down and just like sticks his head out the window and looks at us. Yeah, stares at us, And it was very strange because he was looking at us through the windshield. He had this blank expression on his face.
No, just blank.
And his eyes were like kind of dead. Like there's, I was like, what is going on here? He's looking at us for like 10 seconds. And I'm like, this is strange. This is creeping me out. Like, this is weird. So then they pull in front of us. And so now they're in front of us.
When you say there was someone else in the passenger side?
Yeah, there was someone in the passenger side that rolled the window down and looked at us. Because they're on the left side of the road. They're in the left lane and we're in the right lane.
Okay, gotcha.
And so they get in front of us and we see their tag. It says Coyote 8, like the number 8. And
that was shocking right there. Like, what? Because we just left where, God mentioned shooting skinwalkers, which are usually coyote shapeshifters.
Yeah, so we thought that was weird. And just the way they were kind of taunting us on the road, like, it was very strange. And their driving was, skilled. They were skilled.
Highly skilled.
And so they're in front of us, and it seems like they're unsure if they're going to continue going ahead of us or if they're going to pull off on the next exit.
Mm-hmm.
So they pull off, like, at the last second to get off on the exit, like one of those turning exits that's kind of like a circle kind of. And
they barely made it.
Yeah. And so I turned my head to the right to, just look at the car again. And then I noticed the driver is looking like dead at us in our direction. But my window's rolled up and his window's rolled down. He's looking at us in our direction.
Same stare.
With the same stare, the same like plastic looking face. And he's not even looking at the road. And so I turned back to tell my dad, I'm like, that guy is looking at us just like the other guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know what to make of that. And so I turned back and the windows rolled back up and they're going down the turnpike or
And the way they snatched over, they missed the ditch just by like a foot. And they did it professionally and smooth.
Yeah, they're
bizarre.
Yeah.
It was very bizarre. Like, we were freaked out a lot, especially, coming from where we just came from. It was very weird.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of, they reminded me of like, when they looked, it was just kind of like a stiff stare. They weren't, doing any gestures. They weren't making a lot of movements with their mouth or their facial expression, right? It was just blank.
What did they look like?
Younger guys, maybe in their 20s, mid-20s, late 20s. I don't know much about that, the hair color.
The passenger had like blonde hair, like dirty blondish colored hair, and then the driver had like darker brownish hair.
Yeah, I remember the driver. Yeah, the driver, he was really skilled to be able to drive around a circular exit and look at us.
Yeah, it was just really weird.
Mm-hmm.
So then, like, after that all happened, like, eventually we stopped at like a rest stop, and I wanted to ask the angels for like a sign that all this was actually happening, and we weren't, like, just a sign. And then so I turn around and I see like this rainbow in the sky, like immediately after that, and I'm like, wow. I took that as a sign. And then so also just driving towards Lexington, Kentucky, on the way there we noticed like some like names of things that had to do with like wolves. Like I remember
Park.
Yeah, I remember there was a Wolf Creek that was near like the Carter Caves. And then like Lichen Park and
then the radio station.
Oh yeah, and then like the radio station
that we happened to already be listening to, but then they set out the call letters and the little slogan. It was like Wolf FM.
Yeah, and we heard that like closer to Lexington, and then also at like somewhere along the way we stopped at we got off on this exit, which was 133, and we went to this gas station, and
The
Like,
only pump
was
available was 3,
pump 3.
and then the gas station's address was 3333.
Yeah, so we were like,
And
wow, that's
yeah.
synchronistic numbers. Um and then so anyway, after seeing all that, it's like every little thing is just adding up back to back, and we're like, we can't get a break from all this. And so also, what also stood out on that trip, it was dark. We were driving Kentucky, and it was around Lexington area. So I remember there was this white truck that was driving, and it had like a Sasquatch Bigfoot sticker, and then like above it said "Send it," and then there was this sign for Transylvania University, and then I looked on like the left, and there's a U-Haul with like the green alien. It's green though. There's like a green
green alien.
Yeah, and it's like boom, 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 and it's like, wow. I was like, Bigfoot, Transylvania, I think of vampires, and then you see alien. It's like, what? All this stuff is like all happening at once, and
it was just mind-boggling. I was trying to wrap my head around all of it, if it was coincidence or synchronicities or some of both. So I'm still kind of having a issue with my heart after that Coyote 8 car. That scared me a lot.
Yeah.
But you were down the road a ways before you.
It was near Grayson, Kentucky.
It was before that.
Or before that, but it was Kentucky.
It was in Kentucky, like we had just gotten.
You just crossed the border.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, so that's kind of all the like action that happened on that day, and then like the next day was October 2nd. It was Sunday, and so we went to the cave that morning, because we were like, let's do something kind of fun. We didn't go to the caves or anything. We didn't, book a ticket or anything. We just kind of went, towards the visitor center. But we stopped at like one of the little lookouts that had like a little nondescript trail.
Mm-hmm.
Really reading the plaques and stuff. And we took Smalley, the little Chihuahua. We took her down this little tiny trail. It's it doesn't seem like people really go down it. And so we go like 200, 300 feet?
Yeah, about 200 feet.
Yeah, we go and, we're taking pictures of like the beautiful trees. It's very pretty up there. And, and so, we do the walk, come back. I noticed
some structures out in the woods too, like tree bends and things that look like they were placed together, like some of the things that I saw back at my friend's land, similar things.
Okay.
Yeah, so we go back to the visitor center, and I stayed in the car with Smalley, and my dad went inside. He got pamphlets, stuff like that. But while he was in there, I remember feeling around for my phone, because I was like, wait a second, I don't have my phone with me. And then so I start, digging up in my pockets, looking everywhere, check my backpack, looking in the back seat, checking under the car seat, stuff like that, looking multiple times. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't find my phone. And I'm a little freaked out because, all the stuff that's been happening.
Sure.
And my phone had the photos of like what we saw and of, what I heard in the woods.
Yeah.
So my phone had those photos and the tracks. And so I was like, if those people were after us, we're just saying if, then my phone would be valuable. And so I'm like, oh my God, I'm a little concerned about it. And especially looking back at my dream, it had to do with like some photos being released and then the sticker that said send it. It's like, I was just hoping to find my phone for the sake of the, the very special photos. So anyway, I tell my dad, and he looks in the car. We don't find it. And so I'm like, well, let's go check the trail again. Maybe it fell, but I didn't remember hearing anything. So I was like, let's go check the trail again. So we drive back there, and so we check the trail. We walk down it a couple more times, and then I get my dad to call my phone, and my phone has a really loud ringer for when my dad calls, and so you'd be able to hear it.
Sure.
And he called it a few times. We didn't hear anything. And so I was like, well, you know what? What if someone, found it or took it or something like that? So I was like, so my dad texted my phone and, typed lost phone at cave and, call me back or something like that.
Right.
And then so I was like, okay, let's call visitor center. Maybe someone found it and took it there. They didn't answer. So I was like, you know what? Let me go look over here at the little lookout area with like the information plaques, and I'm gonna kick up leaves and stuff, and maybe it's under leaves or something. So I told my dad, please call my phone again while I kick the leaves and stuff like that. And he was like, it's going straight to voicemail now. And I was like, wow, that is really weird, because I was like, well, maybe if someone has it and they turned my phone off, or they blocked the number or something.
Mm-hmm.
And so then he calls again, same thing happens. And then my dad texts the phone again, and he's like, he puts
before I did that, I asked for some, I did a little prayer, and I asked for some help from Archangel Michael and Raphael to help me locate the phone, so we can, get what we have, the pictures back, and to have the phone. And then I texted the phone, assuming that the guys that were in the Coyote 8 vehicle were maybe perhaps MIB or something like that. And I just said, a text, MIB, we need our phone back.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I saw a sparkle when I looked over to the left that was off in the grass. So I got out of the Jeep, and I walked over towards Sparkle. And in the grass, about 25 feet away from anywhere we walked before, was her phone with a glitter case. And I'm an archaeologist, so I can find small artifacts smaller than a stamp, from a standing position, sometimes even as a pencil eraser size. And I could just see it on the ground because I know what I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And we had already combed the area. And then that's where this phone was, by another trailhead that we didn't go on. And it was a more kind of grown over trailhead. It had some bushes.
That's really strange.
Trimming.
Yeah, and then
the phone was face down on some gravel rocks with some grass growing up through it. And if it was dropped, it would have been an impact scratch mark, which you didn't have.
And we would have heard it.
We'd have heard it ring.
Yeah, we would have heard it. Yeah, we would have heard it ring.
Then tell him about the power.
So like my dad calls me over and says he finds my phone, and I pick it up and I get it from him, and I notice that it's turned off. So I have to, turn it back on, and the little Apple logo, pops up. It turns back on, and I go to take like a picture of like the area where my dad found it, but the camera is all blurred. Like it won't focus at all. It's like all blurry. So I just take like a photo, it's blurry, and then my phone dies because I see that it's on 1%. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense, because before I lost it, it was like 80% charged, and there's no way I would have died that quick. And so I just thought that was very strange that the battery drained so fast.
Yeah.
That is.
Yeah. And so we went back to the Jeep, and I plugged it in, charging. We did stop at like one of the other boardwalks that was, more established. It was an actual boardwalk, and there was other people there. And we saw some like, more defined structures there.
Yeah, there was even one that looked more like TP, but where there's 6 or 7 long branches that, put together, that were off in the woods, forest.
And it was like near the pond. The boardwalk went around a pond.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, after that, it was closer to Conecuh County in Alabama, and So this is the thing that was very
This is the grand finale, right?
Yeah, it was very shocking, and it, I don't really know how to describe it. It was just crazy. It was
super intense.
Yeah, it's like unreal. So it was dark, later in the night, and I was texting my brother, where we were, blah blah blah. So anyway, a car that looked similar to the Coyote 8 tag car, like that kind of build of a car, and it was a brighter blue. It came from, like, it was in the left lane, we were in the right lane. It was kind of aimed towards like the driver's side, the back door, and it was kind of aimed like it wanted to run us off the road. And like when it kind of got closer to us, something like pushed it off the road with such like force, like the momentum that car
it was
had,
like swept over into the ditch almost.
Yeah, the momentum that car had being pushed away from us, it was so crazy and so unreal that it didn't like flip over and crash, because I saw that car just being pushed away while it was still aimed at us.
And I was stomping on the gas to try to prevent being hit too.
So it was still aimed at us, got pushed away, and that momentum, I was like, there's no way it won't like crash. And I was thinking, we're gonna have to pull over and call like the ambulance and the cops and stuff like that. But it didn't. It was still in the grass.
Driving in the median.
Yeah, it was still in the grass, and it was still driving, keeping like almost speed with us. And we were kind of trying to get away. My dad was trying to get away from that, and that car was, it didn't brake. It didn't, slow down.
You'd think they would, right?
Yeah. It seemed like the same skill of driving that the Coyote 8 tag had. That's why we thought it was significant, other than the fact that it tried to run us off the road. But the car was in the median still driving, almost keeping speed with us, and it looked like it wanted to come back, and it was still kind of wanted to aim towards us again, and something pushed it, and it did it again, and something else, and it pushed it again. And we were like, that is very strange, but we're very grateful that we didn't get pushed off the side of the road with the trailer in the back. That would have been horrible.
And we had asked for protection from Archangel Michael for the trip back too.
Yeah, and then so we eventually get ahead of it, and then traffic comes and catches up. So we're thankfully away from that car now. And after that, it's like you can't sleep. It's like you got to stay awake until you get home.
Yeah, that was too much.
Yeah, it was way too much.
Oh yeah. Very, very bizarre.
We didn't know. We were trying to think if they were impaired. Then we were like, no, if they were impaired, they would have flipped over. How could they drive so good with a car with low ground clearance and in a median that wasn't even flat? It had an angle where it was kind of like a triangular, lower in the middle, and kind of a steep embankment. Not like 10 feet down. It was just a gradual incline or decline, but it's still drive on it if you have skill. But
it was such a low riding car, and the force that pushed it off the road, it was just crazy that it didn't, crash and flip.
I was thinking they were going to flip over or come to a dead stop. I would have put on brakes if that was me.
Now you say a force, so this was not something physical you saw, but it at least it had that appearance like something was pushing it or controlling it, other than the car itself.
Yes, exactly.
Like wind or something. Yes.
Okay, very interesting. So you're on your way. You're so far. I mean, this car moves away from you.
Yeah, we pass it, and other cars start coming up, and normal traffic, and then
right.
Yeah.
Then, before we get back to Florida, let me do it.
Yeah.
I was so, my nerves are frayed. Every single nerve in my body was frayed from the whole entire experience, and I was, sleep deprived. I had too much coffee in my body, and so it's all getting. And I asked for, Archangel Michael to show me a sign. If all of this was real, I said, everything we went through was all connected and part of some, something bigger. I want I want to see a sign that's like a wolf license plate on a vehicle before we get back. And when we get off the exit from Alabama to Florida on a county road going um, to the Florida state line, that's when we're on the road for maybe a mile, and then a car comes up on our right side, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it had a tag as it passed us slowly that said wolf in red, just red, WOLF, nothing else. And the background was white and had the little tag lights where you could see it. And then the vehicle, stayed a couple car lengths ahead of us, and we're like, what? That's insane. I said, the chances of that happening are 1 in millions. 10, 20, 30 million or more, that happened then.
Right.
And we're still thinking, is it coincidence, synchronicity, or is it something above and beyond that?
Mm-hmm.
And we try to catch up with it
because I'm trying to
get photos. We're trying to get pictures of it. And as soon as I step on the gas a little bit, and I'm pulling a trailer, that this vehicle takes off and speeds up and keeps the same distance ahead of me as I'm speeding up. So it's always staying, a few car lengths ahead.
Sure.
And I said, this is very weird. As soon as I speed up, it speeds up. And it's on the right side, I'm on the left. And so I stomp on the gas, and I'm trying to not going way beyond the speed limit. I'm just still in the speed limit, but I go a little faster, and it just takes off, and they leave me in the dust, and they get about several hundred feet or 500 feet even, way up to the next turn off, and then they cut over down a little side road, and it looked like they just went and parked and just had the brake lights on. As we passed the little side road, they were still there with the brake lights. And that was just super bizarre. That, and there was no other vehicles on the road. It was like really late.
Yeah, it was late.
And we don't know if that was coincidence, synchronicity, supernatural, or just can't figure it out.
When you say synchronicity, explain to me what you mean, if you don't mind.
Almost kind of like all this stuff is connected for a reason. That it's almost like there's a meaning behind all of it, and not just a random, luck of the draw or random serendipitous type, stumble upon something. That all of it was kind of meant to happen,
planned, timed.
Yeah.
All that. Okay. I just want to be. I knew kind of what you were talking about there, but I just wanted to kind of clarify. Wow.
Yeah. So all of that, the whole entire experience, and we didn't even tell you all of it. Like we told you probably 75% of it, because there's so many other little things that were going on that it would make the story the experience is too long. But that was, for us, it was a really eye-opening too.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that now. What's very interesting about, and this may not have any meaning, by no means. I find it very interesting if you were minding your own business on the highway and you weren't erratically driving, which I doubt you were, obviously.
No,
especially with a trailer. Obviously, you're going to watch your P's and Q's on the highway, so to speak. I find it very interesting, that stare, but I can't recall which movie this was. But I don't forget characters and certain events in movies. But I think this had to do with a John Travolta movie. I don't know why it just popped into my head here, but it was one that he did some years ago, him and Samuel L. Jackson. And in there was a guy that drove a fancy car, and the back of it, he was known as the Coyote.
What?
Remember,
Oh, wow.
Remember that? And what his job was, now, I could be. I know if it's not that movie, it's another movie. He drove a very. I see the car, but I can't think. It's like an Acura, very high end car at that time. It kind of looked like a Ferrari, but it wasn't. And
Right.
he had a tag that said Coyote, and his job was the cleanup man.
Oh,
Af-
yikes.
After an event, after someone took out someone, his job was the cleanup guy. He made everything look spotless as if it never happened.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, and I thought that was interesting when you said that.
Yeah.
The car and the tag. Now, this tag said Coyote 8, so I don't know what that meaning is. You could come up with
Well,
10
here
different conclusions.
he said when we were we were reading all the literature and the documentation they had on the MIBs or MIB, and it said that they travel in pairs, dark vehicles, usually know something about the witness that only the witness would know. And what else did they say? They taunt and
They taunt and they have like these
blank stares.
Yeah, blank stares.
And they're really skilled drivers. And all this stuff was mentioned in all these newspaper articles and these display posters that they had there. But
Well, see that
we had that in our back of our mind.
things have changed a little bit since then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would think
This is what I'm writing on as right now. I'm writing on this very subject. I've had a lot of experience with these people, and all of this came about actually. It started decades ago, 50 plus years ago, with the UFO scene back during the Eisenhower administration around 1956. And that's a very important year because that's the year when Eisenhower pretty much lost control of the military industrial complex. Now, we call them, as I have many times, the men in black, and there's just not relegated to men. We don't want to leave out the women. There's women too that are also within this organization. This organization has changed greatly since the time of the events that transpired were at the you went to, and you know what I mean.
Yeah.
They have really perfected a lot of things, unfortunately, not for our benefit, but for theirs. And, when they came out, now these MIBs is, we believe that they're a collection. There's roughly about 17 agencies that make up this military industrial complex. And it's all the alphabet groups. The CIA, the FBI, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They're made up of men and women, but they're more than just men and women at a government level. And specifically, I've used this term before, but really it's not a correct term. I've said deep state.
Yes.
That's more of a public, generic term. More specifically, more accurately, what these people are involved in with these creatures and or ETs is what we call unacknowledged special access programs. Unacknowledged special access programs. In other words, they're not acknowledged by anyone at a government level, and what I mean by that, they're not acknowledged nor known about at the level of government that we see on TV. The president is not privy to this information. The vice president and heads of state, in other words, cabinet members, high brass, director of CIA, these people are not privy to this information. So the rabbit hole goes deep, far, and wide. You have to be read into these programs. And what I mean by the term read into these programs, you're invited into these programs. You're not you're somewhat voted in, but these are esoteric small groups that once you're invited in, or in other words, read into the group, these are above top secret. um, unacknowledged special access programs. And these programs that these MIBs belong to, each of these areas, these programs, whether it's the ETs, whether it's moving spacecraft to a different location, or bodies, or in our sense, cryptids, they have everything has a project name.
Mm-hmm.
Everything has a project name. That's how they know who is working on what, and everything is compartmentalized. So imagine you got this big building, and you've got 25 floors, and there is 50 rooms to a floor, and each room is working on a separate aspect regarding creatures. One is working on Dogman. One is working on the agility of Dogman, working on the size and nutrition of it. One's working on the Bigfoot level. One's working on a creature called Ram Man or something. Another one's working on a creature that looks like a Dogman but has wings like a bat. So there's different entities, different projects that people are working on, but they are not told to converse. So it's no different than when you hear compartmentalization at the government level, how they operate. Do you remember there was a show by Bob Lazar. I don't know if you've seen the documentary on Bob Lazar, but quickly, he was a guy that worked at a young age, brilliant guy. He was in, where was it?
Yeah, I've heard of him.
Yeah. So he was hired, and he didn't know he was being hired to work with these spacecraft. His job was to reverse engineer the electromagnetic propulsion system on an aircraft, an ET aircraft. But how they went about in interviewing him, they never came out and said that. They just said, what do you do for fun? What do you do in your spare time? Tell us some projects you've operated on. And it was very generic questioning. He was like, oh, well, I built a mini electronic accelerator in my house. And that was really what he did. He built jets and put them on bicycles and weird things. And they said, okay, we'll meet at this airport. You're going to get on an airplane at this time. So he gets on along with other people, and the windows are locked shut. You can't see where you're going. So the airplane takes off. There's no notable aircraft FAA numbers on it. Takes off and it lands. And where he's at is what we would call Area 51, but the correct names are like S4, S9, and S12 area. But we know it is Area 51. And he goes through all of this interesting to get into the base. He gets checked in, and the guy the first day takes him into this hangar, and there is an ET aircraft. And he looks at the guy and he says, this is what you hired me for? And he goes, well, yes and no. You're going to be working only on the propulsion system to reverse engineer how this thing works. You're not to talk to anyone else. When you see other people working on it, they're going to be working on the inside and outside, but you're going to be working only on the bottom of the propulsion system, what makes this thing go and turn. So they compartmentalize their work at facilities. And that's very much how they do it with these creatures. And they send teams in to extract these creatures if someone is having issues on the property. I'll be brief here, but basically they send specialized teams. There's a team called the Omega Team. Something like this. It's called the Omega Team, and it's really the upper crust of Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, the best of the best of the best. And they send these people in to basically take out these creatures in certain areas, and then they take them out. Then they have an extraction team, and then if there's any left alive, then they're under research and all this stuff. But anyway, that's just a smidgen of what I'm writing on right now.
Wow, that's
very interesting.
That is super, super informative. So thank you.
Yeah, it gets a little bit deeper and longer, but that's just kind of the crust of things that this these programs are real. These people, this is what they really do for a living. They are not your friend. They don't have a problem in destroying your life and then going home and sleeping like a baby.
Wow.
Wow.
Their job is under the umbrella of this national security state, if you will. I mean, and that's the thing, that the biggest mystery that people have no idea is that really we have we have two aspects of our government. We the people, and then we have what we call the deep state. But the deep state is really these very unacknowledged special programs, that access programs that, and it's not all cryptid, it's not all ET. There's other energy programs that are like that are unacknowledged.
Like ley,
Pardon me?
like ley line energy.
Well, yeah. I mean, we're talking energies that people all over the planet have designed in their garage. People that are really brilliant that'll run a car on a gallon of water and they'll go 1,000 miles.
Wow.
Things like this that people, ordinary people like you and I, have developed, that if it gets too out there in the news, you'll get a knock at your door saying,
My God.
your product is a matter of national security. We need to extract what you have. Well, no, you don't.
That's
And
terrible.
that's happened. That's happened numerous times. So the unacknowledged special access programs is more than just creature cryptid related, more than just ET related, although a great majority of those are into those access programs. But there's other programs like that are extremely not only secret, but above top secret. And so people don't play in this area. What they do for a living is they do what's called psychological warfare, or tactics, where
Yeah.
you don't know who they are, you don't know what department they represent, and it's hard to talk about this. You can't sue them because the government,
Yeah.
no one knows who they are. They don't have name badges. They don't say who they work for. They don't give their name, but they use tactics to coerce you to basically, they can make your life a living hell. They can take bank accounts and drain bank accounts and close accounts, make you lose your job, and you just don't know what's going on. Before you know it, it's crazy. It's crazy that
You're
this goes on.
homeless on the street corner.
Wow.
It is. It's pretty scary, actually. That's the part that's scary. It
Yeah,
is.
it sounds. Sorry to interrupt. It sounds like they are working against like the betterment of
Society.
and like the
Well,
humanity.
there is no betterment here. This has gone on so long that it's gotten out of hand. It's out of the president's reach, because presidents come and go, vice presidents come and go, politicians come and go. Whether you're a senator or a congressman, it doesn't matter. You people come and go, right? So
Yeah.
those people very rarely, they have no knowledge of what's going on at a much deeper, and if you will, more honestly, a sinister level, because these people do not operate within the bounds of the Constitution. They don't have to. They have unlimited budgets. They have an unlimited budget. And back when Rumsfeld was with Bush, he did a speech saying that there was close to, I believe he said there was, now I'm probably going to misquote here, around 20 billion or trillion dollars that was unaccounted, 2 trillion, that's it, $2 trillion that was unaccounted for in their books.
Wow.
Now just think, if you had 2 trillion unaccounted for in your bank account, would you know it? Of course you would. You would know if $20 is not right.
Right. Exactly.
So that's so much money.
Crazy. Insane.
It is insane. It's ridiculous. But there's so much money being funneled into so many different departments that it's hidden at so many sub levels that it's just
That's
hard to
scary.
track.
Really scary.
It is very scary because these people don't operate like you and I. You and I go to jail over that stuff. They don't, because they're operating under the guise of national security.
They're above the law.
Oh, they make the law. They're so far, they believe they are the ultimate last say of everything. That's it. So if they close your account, destroy your life, and you lose your job, oh well, it was in the interest of national security. I had to do it. I mean, they don't question it. They are told, do whatever you need to do. And that's the scary part. And it is very scary. I mean, these creatures can be very scary, but what's even more scary is these agents, because they are an agent of the U.S.
Try to keep everything hush hush.
Yep. And so they do not like paper trails. They do not like people talking about this. So I've been doing this for a long time. They know who I am, and I'm not trying to be bragging about it, but they've known
Well,
who.
you've got a big channel.
Well,
really big...
yeah, and I was green at first into this. I was really green until I had a lot of people call me back and say, Lance, I was visited by some people you got to know about. Something's fishy and goofy here. And I'd say, what happened? And then they would share with me, and this has happened dozens of times over the years. They'd share with me, well, I had this guy and this girl show up out of nowhere. And they questioned me, and I still don't know why they questioned me. They never told me why they were here, and they never told me their name in the department. They were dressed really weird. And as soon as I turned my back, they were just like gone. Like,
oh my God.
Like they didn't exist. And I would just, what? So the thing that I'm going to throw another wrench at you, and then, I appreciate you being on, is that here's and there is on the Bob Lazar documentary, there was an interesting part there that really kind of resonated with me. It's very fascinating about Bob Lazar, but in that documentary, he has a business in which he kind of makes raw materials for chemistry labs and things like this. He employs a few people, and he's a chemist at heart, and so he's a pretty brilliant guy. And so he was talking about during this documentary he was making, he was going to work, and he parks his car and he walks a ways to the back entry of his business, and it's wide open spaces. Like, it's wide open around him. There's no bunch of this is a small little town he lives in. And where he parks his car in the back, it would be considered like an alley, but it really isn't an alley. It's wide open spaces. He walks to the back door. He looks around, nothing around him. As soon as he sticks the key in the door, bam, there's two people right next to him.
Oh my God.
And I found that very fascinating, because that is very much reminiscent of a couple of the instances of interviews that I did with guests after they had seen a cryptid creature. People just kind of appeared on their doorstep, past them in a gated area. And then as soon as they turned their back after questioning, they almost, if you will, like vanished. Like, where'd they go? So the wrench I was going to throw in there is that I don't think that a lot of these people are necessarily, if they are, we have technologies that are far beyond what we're aware of. And there's a lot of technologies that are out there that are far beyond what we even know. The phones that we have now, that's ancient technology compared to what we have. I believe that either some of these people aren't all human, or
that's what I think.
or they're human using excuse me, advanced technologies in this particular department to assist them in this if you will, unacknowledged special access programs. So, but anyway, I could go on. I don't mean to steal the thunder of this interview here, but that just
that was mind-blowing information you gave us. Thanks for that.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And the rest of what I'm glad you guys were safe back home, obviously. it's quite an experience when someone goes through that. And another aspect here too, I'll just say it. My brother Bill and I, we spend a lot of time every week when I upload shows because his internet's a lot faster than mine being out here in the country. And so while I'm waiting for my show to upload, which takes a number of hours when I get there, we talk about different things. We read incessantly, both of us, and we like different areas because it all ties in. So I spend a lot of time in geopolitical issues. I spend a lot of time on the ET aircraft, these unacknowledged special access programs, unacknowledged biological creatures, things like this. A lot of time reading. And so when you start to do all this reading, things kind of all fit together in a weird way. But I'll say that, it's possible, I'm just going to throw this out, that you guys have an affinity or an ability that you could be sensitives. You could, and a lot of people are probably going to say, Lance, you've lost it. And no, there's, it's not that you're asking for this ability, but some people just naturally have it in their family sometimes. It runs in the family. Some people may not. In other words, these abilities would be like, have you ever thought of someone and you haven't seen in a long time and then all of a sudden you bump into them at Walmart?
All things like that happen all the time.
Yeah,
all
and people go, yeah, that's happened. Well, if it happens more frequently like that, whether you think of someone, you bump into them, they call you, hey, what's going on, and you haven't talked to them in 3 years, but all of a sudden you thought of them and then 2 days later, boom. It happens more frequently with other people. And I think I'm just going to say, to me, it's a gift that God has given each of us. We just don't know how to use it. We don't know how to focus and refine it. So I think sometimes things like this, these abilities run in families, and you too might have that ability just based on some of the things you're telling me. You call it, and that's why I kind of alluded to synchronicity.
Well, my dad's aunt, she was a psychic that worked with the Mobile, Alabama newspapers, and she actually worked with a lot of other businesses there, and she was kind of well known in Mobile.
Yeah, and so it's possible, and a lot of people could easily say, wait a minute, Lance, hang on. I thought you were a Christian guy, and I am. But I'm willing to recognize, too, that I believe that there are so many things, the mysteriousness of faith, God, belief, that we are given gifts that we just don't understand. And there's a lot, and that's the mystery of faith. We just don't understand a lot of it, honestly. And so, but I'm willing to acknowledge that I don't know everything, and that have I bumped into people and spoken to people with these abilities and gifts? Yes. And they know things that I've never shared with them, and they know things. Could it run in families a little stronger than others? Absolutely. It does. So anyway, that's just something that comes to mind about you guys. It's
all
not
right. Well, that's great points. Good information. Yeah, it's
just
that helps
because.
us out.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean anything scary or wrong. Again, I'm a man of faith, and I realize that everybody's not, and that's okay. But I'm a man of faith, and in order for me to understand and do what I do, and go out and do these investigations at night, how can I go out with the belief that I'm going to be okay? Is that I use the brain that God gave me. I've been out many times. I've got a lot of wood savvy sense, my brothers and I. We've been in the woods for years, but also I know that I'm protected. And I know that sounds very, I don't want to say it's hopeful thinking, because that's not the way I believe.
Yeah, you're spiritually protected.
I'm very spiritually protected. And so I go knowing that I'm protected, and I use my common sense too. And I try to be safe first, of course. And so, but anyway, that's kind of the things that come to mind with you guys. I'm glad you're okay, of course, but talk about reality stranger than fiction. It is. It really
Yeah,
is. It's like it could be a movie, right?
Yeah.
exactly.
One other thing I want to tell you that's important to the story, maybe you can cut it and paste it, is that the photograph that really shocked us about the phone, and we were on that trail where the phone got lost or disappeared, and there, one of the photos, we noticed that uh, my daughter was the jacket. She was wearing a jacket that was dark green, and the phone is illuminated through the pocket. You're not supposed to see it through the fabric. You know, it's a dark green fabric, but yet you can see the rectangular silver phone through the fabric. Like, that's crazy. And that's in the photo. And in to the left of her elbow in the bushes, there's what looks to be like a cloaked wolf head, but it's not a scary looking Dogman type of a face. It's more like a just a gray wolf with like a mane, but a kind of peaceful looking. And then on her sleeve there is a little what's looked like a little husky. It's right, like the nose of it. You can see the ears, and it's pointing toward the phone, and it looks like spirit energy or something. Maybe it was some spiritual projection or something. I don't know, but that's right when
Well,
the
there's so much that I would say 7 years ago, if you and I were having this conversation, I'm just going to be honest. I would just be, um, my eyes would be rolling back, and just kind of like, what? But I have learned that as I've gotten older and interviewed more and more people, and because of my own reading, lots of reading on various subjects, there's so much we just don't know that I absolutely don't want to throw any biases of my personal, because I think if you throw a bias in there, which we're common to it, Dr. David Buss, who's world renowned um, evolutionary brain psychologist. Now, I don't mean when I say that, I'm not of the belief of aspects of evolution in some parts of development. I'm just using it as a general term of development here, folks. So
right. Understood.
don't
Yes.
don't I'm not to you guys, but to the people that are listening, don't get a bent out of shape on this. Um, but he's world renowned talking about there's 24 biases of human development of the brain, and so I'm very careful about not getting my bias in there just because I haven't seen it or heard about it or experienced it. But is that remain open minded is what I like to say, and you'll be a student for life. If you
Yeah. True.
if you
Exactly.
if you think you're a master at something, I think you kind of limit your ability to learn. So if you remain a student, you'll always continue to learn, and through time, you will master the information. But really, just remain the student. And so that's what we're all doing. That's why I do the show. It's why we document and learn and get smarter. And
Yeah.
so you start to see things that others may not see, because I've had the privilege to do so many interviews over 6 years.
Yeah. That makes sense.
And you just see, it's kind of like if you're a roofer or whatever profession you do, a number of times you get to look at a roof going, yep, oh, that's a structured roof there. They use this kind of nail. They're probably about 14 inches apart. Yeah, yeah, well, yeah, I can do that one. They got the roof lines off a little bit, though, on the right. It's about 2 inches low. How do you know that? Well, I've done a lot of roofs,
Yeah.
so
Yep.
they can speak the lingo, see the lingo, and they just know. And that's kind of what you,
Expertise,
yeah,
experience.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, is there any final words you guys, both of you, would like to say, just kind of on the just words of wisdom, or just this whole experience and your
Uh,
thoughts for someone listening?
I would like to say that, if anybody has an experience that's like this, to be very attentive. I mean, attentive to the different details that happen, and try to take notes on it, and also be very vigilant, because we had to be vigilant in order to make it back to Florida.
Hmm.
And it was pretty stressful.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very well said. I mean, that's the thing, is that most people don't know what's occurring, and by the time you know what's occurring, things may be over. But I would just, to just add exactly what you said, is just take good notes. Really, if you have a weird experience and things just don't add up, or they're adding up very strange, kind of like in your case, and you and your daughter's case, really try to document things. Either take a recorder, record it, and I would even ask, and your daughter even said this, when she lost her phone, she couldn't find her phone. She was kind of freaking out there. I've got my pictures on it. And I know these phones are computers, and there's so many things on there with apps and music and photos, and it goes on, right?
Yeah.
But I would suggest to people, um, if you're out investigating, not only, and I've said this a million times, be safe, of course, and tell someone where you're going, but consider older technology to take pictures and not Wi-Fi technology, because these phones hook up automatically to cell towers.
Yeah, and they can get it.
Yeah, and all these apps and the fine print, what are we allowing them to do? Have access to what? Your photos. And a lot of people don't realize that. All these different apps want access to your photos, your music, your your contacts.
Right.
So I tell people, use my generation technology prior to Wi-Fi, right? And old technology, there's still some cameras that are coming back, everything comes back around. And so when you take photos, use the Polaroid camera. It's kind of older technology, or use one that's non-Wi-Fi based. That's all.
Yeah, I've got a couple of those and use it for my job, and
Yeah.
we'll start doing that for, other things.
Yeah, and I know a phone is easy because it's smaller, it's thin, and that's what most people have. But I'm still I'm Mr. Careful. If you're taking really good photos, like some of the photos you guys have taken, or you've got HD video. Well, just think if you had a GoPro camera just by chance running when you went out and saw that creature. Just think.
I know, that's what I was thinking about investing in, as a GoPro.
And they make GoPro cameras that are really good. It has stabilization issues, or excuse me, it has it stabilizes it so it's not moving around as much. But, we're not photojournalists. It's not natural for us to always carry a camera around our neck like a photojournalist, like they do. For every bump and sound, they take a picture of everything, right? It's not natural to us, because that's not what we do for a living. So that's why it's really rare to get the Gimlin Patterson film of '67 in Bluff Creek, California. That's rare that you can throw an 8mm camera up and get that, because there's been so many of those moments throughout the decades of, that had someone had a camera running. Oh my gosh, we would be mind blown. So it's good to have that. And I would suggest not having it in your hand. I would suggest getting what I'm going to invest in is like a bike helmet, and mount the GoPro on the bike helmet, so your hands are free.
Yeah.
Hands are free, and you can still get a great view. There's nothing impeding the view. So that's one thing that we're going to do. And when you do that, have one going in the front and one going in the back.
Yeah, that would work. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, guys, it's been a real pleasure. I really, really appreciate you guys, speaking with you both. It just validates even more having two people having the same experiences. Not that one can't, but it's just really special when I can get two people on or more, of course. And being that we have a father or daughter that experienced this, I know it was, I know you want to spend time with your mom and dad and your, daughter or son, but, in this particular trip was really one that you would rather have not experienced, but, it ultimately still brings you close together. You had the same experience, and it's something you can always talk about, and you're safe back home, even though it was very strange and odd, and momentarily terrifying. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
but I really appreciate you guys sharing. I hope that through this, that ultimately I'm doing this show to help people cope better, because it's important to talk about it
Yeah.
with people that know that these creatures are real. You're not crazy. There's thousands and thousands of other people that are bold enough to come forward like you guys are, and courageous enough, which in my books you are, because a lot of people will have these encounters and never ever talk about it. It's too
Yeah.
frightening to talk about it. They're afraid of ridicule,
Yeah.
embarrassment, but that's human nature, right? And so coming forward takes a lot of courage. And I know that a lot of people want to hear these stories because it's scary, and it's, to them it's a campfire story. But we have to be reminded all these encounters happen to real people. We're just like everybody wants to, have a good life and make a good living and share family experiences and all those things, right? But
Right.
it happens to real people, and it can affect them their whole life. And so that's kind of one of my missions too, of why I do the show, is just to
We
help
had
them get
no
through it.
idea. Well,
That's a good mission. I really appreciate that.
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. Well, guys, I want to thank you again. Thank you so much for just sharing this with us. It's been highly fascinating, and I'll be sharing those photos you sent. Um, and if you have if you want to make contact, now I can't tell you what date it's going to come on yet, but you'll know when it's on. The people that help me, they're working on other projects too, but I'll do my best to let you know when it's coming on, so you can take a listen to it and see.
Yeah. I mean, the whole experience was shocking, and we had no idea we were going to be going to a Dogman ranch or anything like that. It was just so bizarre, so otherworldly experiences that took place, that glad to be back, but yet it was still super educational on what we learned from all of the shocking and intense, scary experiences. So
Yeah,
glad to be talk to somebody about it.
yeah, and I'm so thankful you called. And if you have any further questions or anything, give another call anytime. Well, thank you guys again. I appreciate it so much. And I'll work on getting this show out here within the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay.
Okay, that sounds good then. Thank you, Lance.
Okay, you're so welcome. And again, it was a pleasure in meeting you both online there. And you guys take care, be safe, and always thanks for tuning in. I sincerely appreciate it.
You want
Thank
to
you
record
too.
us saying thanks on the show?
Oh, that's good. We're good right now.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Yep.
Also, thank you for having us speak about our experience, and giving us like more insight on things to like research and broaden our perspectives.
Yeah.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome. It was so nice to talk to you guys. And I hope in some ways it helped.
Oh, it did. It did a lot.
Yeah, you definitely enlightened us in a lot of ways that we didn't, previously have.
Okay, good. Good to hear. All right, you guys, you have a wonderful evening and a better tomorrow.
You
Okay.
too.
You too.
Okay.
Thanks.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay. It was a long show, guys. I know sometimes it'll run into 2 and 3 hours. We're at hour 3 here plus. But a couple things here. I don't know what else to really say. I said a lot. I didn't mean to get too sidetracked a little bit about these unacknowledged programs, and about these abilities that people have sometimes, and about the abilities that both this father and daughter may have. But to me, it's just in many, many ways, it seems like the more that I do a lot of in depth reading and research into various subjects, um, it's all kind of tying together. And my brother Bill and I talk about this a lot. and you start to see things, how they connect. Not necessarily in a major way, but just minor threads, if you will. So, but it does. In many ways, it still all ties in a very strange and odd way. Again, reality is stranger than fiction. But anyway, with that being said, it was a long interview, well worth it. These people were fantastic. I hope you guys are doing well out there. I hope you learn all you can. You're staying safe and taking lots of notes. In the meantime, guys, be sure to visit our sites that we have. You might find interesting. We have the Twitter monster underscore 911. We have the Instagram monster 911. Of course, you're on the YouTube monster 911. Facebook monster 911. And then we have the website monster911.com. And if you have a report of an incident and you don't want to call the toll-free number, I get it. You can leave us an email going to monster911.com and go to the upper bar where it says contact. You can drop down, click on that, and you can type away. So I really would love to hear from you guys. And I'll just say, if there's anyone out there that's been in law enforcement or any government agency that has any knowledge remotely close to these creatures of any kind, you're retired, you don't have to give your name or anything like that, I'd like to hear from you. I really would. I'm in that process of writing, and I would like to know more in depth of some things if you can share. In the meantime, guys, take care. This is Lance with Monster 911. See you soon.